I don't know if I need an introduction. I feel like you guys all know me or received 5 text messages, 2 calls, and a few emails from me throughout the course of May till now. But I'm Karina. I'm from Nuestra Señora del Monte in Cicero. I grew up, I'm a first-generation college student. Mis papás emigraron al país cuando ellos tenían 24 y 23 años. And my entire life, I've been told that my life, like whatever I do with my life has to make their sacrifice worth it. And como muchos hijos de migrantes, you kind of get told that story that, look, we have to make that sacrifice worth it. So siempre crecí sabiendo que tenía que ir a la escuela, tenía que ir a la universidad, tenía que sacar una carrera, and to be successful. And so I felt a lot of pressure creciendo, and I knew that I had to go to school, pero creciendo no sabía qué hacer con mi vida, y mucho menos a los 18 años. Pero por incidente, in high school, tuve muchos maestros muy buenos, so I just said, I was like, let me give teaching a try. So I entered the College of Education, and durante ese tiempo, I was the receptionist at my parish at Our Lady of the Mount, y durante ese tiempo también me invitaron a dar catequesis, y empecé con, el diácono se llama Benito, in a confirmation class with people who were 14 to 16 years old. I'm not crying because of me, I'm just still processing. And I just fell in love with teaching before I even had the opportunity to be in an actual classroom. And just sitting there as I was preparing to teach, I was 18 myself, and mientras crecí en la parroquia, like my parents were ujieres, catequistas, eran los que limpiaban la iglesia, like cada jueves después de escuela, like I had to eat really quick porque tenía que limpiar la iglesia, because if my family didn't do it, no se limpiaba and someone complained. But I was always at the church, but I fell in love with the catechism, and just seeing how broken these young people came to the point where they were so angry and their hearts were so hard, and they were stone cold because their parents were not present in their lives. They weren't there to talk to God about them, so they had questions. They wanted answers. Something as simple as, ¿cómo me persino?, to as something as complicated as, why does God make bad things happen? And so I carried that, and I was a catechist for a very long time. Eventually I met a very tall man de Zacatecas who was a little crazy. And he invited me to my initiation retreat. For those of you who didn't know, Vicente was my coworker a long, long time ago. And so after my initiation retreat, I decided to take teaching seriously. And part of my practicum was to go to different schools in different areas in Chicago. So my first school that I went to was in the Southwest Side, right by the United Center. It was a predominantly Black neighborhood. And when I tell you that what I saw at that school has continued to scar me to this day, and just seeing 8-year-old students talking about how they had to be picked up early because they were afraid that they were going to be jumped after school. They were 8 years old. They were scared that their parents might see someone that they didn't like y se iban a pelear después de escuela. Hubo un día que estaba caminando por el pasillo y nomás escuchaba gritos y gritos de niños. And then you hear a grown man yelling, like, bien desesperado, like hysterical, and just like, stop, like, I'm like, please calm down, stop throwing chairs. I was watching a grown man have a mental breakdown con niños de 7 años. Y yo me acuerdo que me paré y dije, like, ¿a esto me voy a dedicar el resto de mi vida? And so I just felt so discouraged with my purpose, and just saying, if my purpose is to teach, is this what I want for the rest of my life? Thankfully, I was able to go to another school. Me mandaron to the north side, right by Wrigley Field. And students were talking about their summer vacations and lo que iban a hacer for fall break. Y estos niños, otra vez como de 7, 8 años, estaban hablando sobre sus casas de campos on the lake, their vacation homes, their boats. And I remember I was 20 years old and saying, like, estos niños a 7 años ya tienen más de lo que yo voy a tener el resto de mi vida. They already have more than I already will ever have in my life. But finally, I was sent to Spry in Little Village, and it was the first time when I was teaching where I felt like I was home, because these kids' names, sus nombres, se sonaban como los míos, and they had artwork that looked like, it felt like you were in el centro de Mexico, like somewhere in Guadalajara. And during that time, it felt very much que ahí pertenecía. Y había una niña que, pobrecita, no hablaba mucho inglés, pero la maestra no hablaba español. Y esta niña siempre la regañaban y siempre la regañaba por distraída. But she was asking questions, or si no entendía, obviously she was going to play around. Y yo obviamente crecí con inglés como primer lenguaje, pero nunca hablaba español, pero no académicamente. But I remember, no sabía sumar, so tenía que hacer un Google search de cómo decir las palabras de sumar, restar, to carry, double digit. And you would think that as a Spanish speaker, you already know how to do that, but that's hard. And I remember I sat down with this little girl, and I taught her how to add, and she's like, así se hace. And I was like, yes. And we just had an epiphany, and we did a little dance. And I stayed at that school for the rest of the year, and I was in a bilingual classroom as I continued to teach catecismo. At that time, I was a guía, and I became a coordinator. And I was surrounded by students with even more hurt. I'm just going to share a little quick story. Había una niña que se llamaba Mónica. She was in second grade. Y esta niña, pobre, la veías, and it was, you know how when you see homeless people on the street that you avoid eye contact? La gente la miraba así. Ella no tenía apoyo en casa. Ella se levantaba cada día y lo primero lo que veía era lo que se ponía. If she saw her dad's shirt, she would wear her dad's shirt to school. If she saw her older brother's shoes, her mom's pants, era lo que se ponía. So she was always wearing clothes that didn't belong to her, and she smelled. And I remember sitting there as I would coming home, I would take the bus home and just saying, solo Dios sabe lo que a donde llega su casa. What does she experience at home? But every day she always came with a smile on her face and tell me about something that she saw at home, and she was always happy. But I knew that her home situation was very hard. But to make matters short, that's how I knew I really wanted to be a teacher and that I was useful. During my time at OLM, pasé mucho tiempo ahí y me enseñé cómo amar a servir. I just love to serve and I love to be there, y me metí a todo lo que podía hacer. As my time as a coordinator, llegué a tener hasta 70 jóvenes cada semana. That became problematic because obviously you can't fit 70 young people in a room. But I struggled. Y muchas veces Tim was talking about how we are Juan Diegos and how people don't listen to us, pero muchas veces me sentía como María pidiendo posada when she was about to give birth, because at one point me dijeron, you can't use the parking lot, you can't use the chapel, you can't use the hallways, you can't use the front, you can't use the gym, and they just named places that I couldn't be. And it just felt like I had all of these kids with me and I was in charge of them. And every week I had to figure out what to do to share the gospel. And I feel like that was the real true sense of community. And to make this short, porque ya Vicente's looking at me. During those moments of those questionings, cuando estaba batallando, cuando veía estos niños, I would just question why is God placing me here? Or why is God making me struggle? I'm working so hard for you and you're gonna tell me that I can't be in the church? I'm working so hard for you and you're telling me that you can't love this little girl a little bit more for her to have hot water at home? You're not gonna love this person enough to provide, to look at these people, to look at these children with love. Why am I here? But I think at my humble young age of 25, I'm still figuring out my purpose. Growing up, I knew that I wasn't going to be a scientist. I wasn't going to be an engineer. I wasn't going to be a lawyer. I wasn't going to be super rich. No tengo talento para platicar, so I'm not going to be some president or politician or cantante or famosa. But as a teacher, I'm going to have every single one of these people. And so as I'm teaching, I think my purpose is to serve. I think my purpose is to demonstrate God's love in a creative way. I think my purpose is to provide radical acceptance and foster authentic connections with the people that come into my classroom every year. And more so to just continue to be a handmaid of the Lord and just continue to be accepting of where God is taking me. Thank you.